Hey, good morning. Yes, it is. It is Sunday. Time for the Sunday sermon, right? Today is July 27th. So, what are we going to talk about today? Well, I thought we'd talk about worrying. How many of us spend a lot of time doing it when there's no reason for it, right? So, stay tuned. Alrighty, welcome back to the channel. My name is Eric. If you didn't already know it, yes, this is the weekend. Today is the Sunday sermon. What are we talking about today? I'm going to talk about as you get older, this is going to sound more in tune with what you're thinking. Because as we get older, we learn, right? And some of us don't learn, but most of us do. And that's the amount of time spent worrying about stuff that are out of our control. And I'm not saying not to worry about the real things in life because there are things that do require time to worry about, right? What I'm saying is, if you can do something about it today, this minute, do it. Get it out of the way and then move forward. Don't spend all day long worrying about something when there's something that you could do about it. Now, if you look at it and there's nothing you can do about it, then why are you worrying about it? Maybe it's a child that has left home and you're worried about them being on their own. Don't. If they're having any problems, they will get a hold of you. And that means you just don't be calling them every 4 or 5 hours just to check up on them. That will drive them insane. But the things that I mean, real life, there's a lot of stuff that we have to worry about. We have to worry about the bills. We have to worry about the financing. The list goes on, right? And some of us are pre-built as worry wards. And what's a worry wart? It's someone that worries about something all the time. And I can tell you right now, worrying will shorten your lifespan. It will. If you spend all that time worried about stuff, the old saying goes, it'll make you gray faster than you can have a head turn, right? And it does. It takes so much energy if you're worried about things all the time instead of enjoying the nice things in life. Sometimes that just means you need to change your focus. Instead of looking at the negative things, look at the positive things. What positive things are going on in your life today? And if you focus on the positive things and you address the things that you're worried about, if you have any ability to do, will make that day more enjoyable. But some of us are destined to wake up this morning and have stuff that we're worried about. And what I can tell you is probably 90% of the stuff that I used to worry about, I had no control over. And in par with the Sunday sermon, what I finally came to realization was worry about the things that you have control over and put everything else up to God. Serious. It's not like you're not willing to do anything about it. It's just that you're powerless to do something about it. And that's wisdom. If you can recognize the things that you're powerless over and that you give up to God, that's wisdom. That comes with time. And the stuff that we used to worry about as kids, and then young adults and now adults are different too, right? When we were kids, we weren't worried about whether the lights were going to get paid, the light bill or the fuel bill and then when we became young adults, we started realizing that we have to pay our way. And then we have to scramble to figure out how to get more money. And then if you get on that merry-go-round of chasing the money, that's going to even cause you to be more worried. I mean, I know I said it before, but when my kids were young, one of the things that, as a parent, a young parent, I wanted my kids to have it better than I did. And I think that my kids are doing the same thing to their kids, and it's making a lazier group instead of having ones that are out enjoying life. It's kind of a spiral. But one of the things that I worried about was that I wasn't a good enough provider. I worried a lot about that, making sure that my kids had everything they wanted, and that there were plenty of Christmas gifts at Christmas time. There were, you know, and we were farming when the kids were young. And then I started working out and farming. And then finally, I woke up one morning and I said, I can't do any more of this. This is just killing me. So I ended up selling the cows, selling the machinery, and keeping the home farm. And I took a job that paid well and had weekends off, had overtime, vacation that I'd never heard of. When you're farming, there's never a vacation, right? But it came with 2 weeks vacation right off the bat. I thought I was living in heaven at that point because they were paying me good and they were giving me time off. And I even had personal time if I needed that. How awesome can that be, But I still spent a lot of hours worrying about not being a good enough parent, a good enough friend, a good enough spouse. It was always I never measured up. And it wasn't that I never measured up with them. It was that I never measured up with myself. They would tell me that I was doing a great job, but I couldn't see it. I spent so much time worrying where I could have been enjoying life. You pretty much only get one shot at this, right? And that is to live your lifespan. And the more time you spend worrying, the less time you're finding enjoyable times. So really worrying is a time waster and a body waster and an aging agent, right? So how can we approach each day and not worry as much? Pretty simple. I wish someone would have told me this when I was younger. And that is, worry about the things that you have control over. I'm not saying not to worry at all. I'm saying only worry about the things that you truly have control over. And that's paying your bills, getting to work, doing a good job. Those things you can do something about, right? But if you're worried about the world in general, if you're worried about what tomorrow's going to bring, or what took place yesterday, or how someone is feeling, unless there is something that you can do about it, you need to give it up to God. That's the simple answer. And if you don't believe in God or a higher power or an alien, you need just to let it go. Let it go. I'm not saying that if you don't pay your light bill, that they aren't going to come out and shut your lights off. Yes, they are. But that's something you can do something about, right? And that is pay your light bill. Pay your freaking light bill. If you don't have enough income coming into the house to cover just the basics, what can you get rid of? What are the things that you can do without? There's nothing saying that you need a brand new vehicle in your front yard and have a payment that's higher than what your house payment is, your mortgage payment. Could a secondhand vehicle do just as much as that brand new one? And the answer is yes. It may not be as fancy-dancy and new as a new one is, but you have to live within your own budget. I'm not saying that if you can afford to have a new truck to not have one. No, not even close. What I'm telling you is that when my kids were young, a lot of the clothes that they had were hand-me-downs. They weren't brand new, top shelf, everything else. We lived in a small community, and my wife was related to everybody. So hand-me-downs and a lot of stuff looked like it was brand new, were handed down to expecting mothers from other mothers from the past, right? And that saved us a lot of money. And I see some families that the idea of taking a hand-me-down, which is used clothing, is like a disgrace, and it's not. We were living within our means, our budget. And at that time, when my son was first born, I dropped out of college. I took a job that paid $50 a week. I worked from 5 in the morning, 4:30 I left the house. I walked to work. I started at 5 in the morning and I worked till 8:30 at night, and I would get home around 9. And I walked to that job and back. And why did I walk? Because my grandfather had given me a Chevy Blazer for transportation. The only problem is that my rent was $150 a month. So it took 3 weeks just to cover the rent. And then 1 month or 1 week to cover the groceries. We didn't have extra money for gas. We didn't have extra money for the finer things in life. And a lot of the meat that we had was venison and rabbits and grouse that I hunted on the farms locally by me. Because the only day I had off was Sundays. You have to live within your means. Does it mean that you're any less of a person if you take hand-me-downs versus brand new? Absolutely not. I think if you have to go through that, you're better off in the long run. You learn to appreciate things a lot nicer if you've gone without in the past. If you've always had the silver spoon of being given whatever you need, what are you actually teaching that child? That they have to have the best of everything. And then when they get older and find out that it doesn't come easy, what are you really teaching that child? We taught our kids family is the most important thing out there. Not materialistic things and all that, family. And it is a close-knit family. And I can tell you right now that when my first wife and I decided to have a divorce, to get a divorce, that we did it as friends. I know it sounds quirky, but to this day, her sisters are still my sisters. And they still treat me like family. That part never left. And my family treats my ex as family. And I wouldn't want it any other way. And my ex and I get along better now than we ever did. We're close friends. But she knew the stuff that we went through. She was there during the harder times. When I remarried, we were in a better place, of trying to get things going. But that didn't stop the worrying. I still had worrying about everything. Second guessing myself all the time. Some of you watching this video are going to be scratching your head because you've never felt or dealt with it. And to you guys, I thank God that you didn't. For the people that I'm resonating with, just stop and think about it today. I'm not going to make this a long video. Look at everything that you're worried about. Write it down. And then start looking at the stuff that you can do something about. If there's something you could do something about, put a check mark by it. And then if there's things that you can't do anything about today, then put it into the other column. And not spend today worrying about something you can't do anything about. And if you keep doing this for a week or two, you're going to be training yourself to recognize this is what I can do about something that I'm worried about, and there's nothing I can do about the other, so I might as well give it up to God. And, you've heard me talk about this before. I get a good night's sleep. Not because I don't worry about things. It's because when I finally get ready to go to bed, I say my nightly prayers. I thank God for another good day to watch over my wife, my kids, my grandkids, Claude, the dogs, the animals, and help anyone else out that may be in need today. And at that point, I take everything that's on my mind and I give it up to Him. And it drives my wife, or always does, drives her crazy, because I can get into bed and be to sleep just like that. And sleep uninterrupted for 7-8 hours. It's because I'm not worrying about something that's waking me up every 5 minutes, or worrying about something that I'm laying in bed and I'm wide awake. And the other thing I'm going to tell you for advice, if you're younger or if you're older, is never go to bed angry. You and your spouse are going to have words sometimes, but never let it keep you from getting a good night's sleep. You need to make amends with her or him before you go to bed. Apologize, just get it out of the way, and move forward. On that note, you guys have a great Sunday, and we'll catch you here bright and early tomorrow morning for another day of the weekday. Enjoy your Sunday.